Hey team, so I'm checking in after about 6 days of doing this challenge. It's not really a challenge, but it is a challenge for me. So 6 days of no refined sugars, no alcohol. I've got some videos that I've recorded throughout the week, and I'm gonna play those for you right now, and then we can talk about kind of what I've experienced so far. Second day, the second morning of not having any sugar. I guess I did have a few cherries yesterday, but the craving for carbs is real. Something in the morning really makes me want to go get a bagel and a cookie or a coffee from the local bakery. Wrapping up the day, I had a little bit of steak, some spinach, and just some homemade ricotta cheese for lunch. Sounds weird. And coconut water. Coconut water had a ton of sugar, but when I looked at the ingredients, it just said coconut and coconut water. So I was like, that's passable. Yeah, had a little bowl this size today, and honestly, not super hungry right now, but I'll tell you what, the craving for food, the thoughts about food are just kind of always there. The idea of, well, I could go have a burger and a beer with some friends is ever pervasive. So this is day 4. I think this is day 4 of not really having any processed sugars. I have been having these things called date rolls. They're basically just like mashed up dates with a little bit of coconut flakes or maybe some nuts. You know, having some fruit. I had a can of coconut water the other day, but when I looked at the ingredients, it just said coconut pulp and coconut water, even though I had a ton of sugar in it. So like, I'm not tasting anything sweet, which I think is making this easier, but I'm not having processed sugars and refined sugars. So I think overall it's pretty good. Also, not drinking, I'm sure, is having a big impact. I don't feel too much different, but I definitely see kind of the that fluctuating fat that comes on and off your body for whatever reason. Like, definitely seen that go away. But I did eat breakfast this morning, which is really rare for me. Usually I only start eating around like 11 o'clock or noon for intermittent fasting, but lately the work I've been doing has been very physically demanding versus before I was working in an office, and intermittent fasting was like a way to kind of consume less calories, let your body, you know, burn more fat and all that kind of stuff. But now that I'm actually needing the energy, I'm gonna try eating breakfast for a little while and see how that works out. So stay tuned. So just got home from work, and I'm realizing, I think, a pattern. So lately, you know, like a normal day of work might consist of me having lunch at work and then getting home and feeling hungry by the time I get home. So I eat something and then immediately feel tired because I'm sitting down, I just ate, and now my body goes into like food digestion mode. So today we had a long lunch and a little bit like late in the day, and I could feel myself start to get tired after that. And so then when I started, you know, talking to my buddy that I work with, he was saying how when he starts to move and like immediately get back to work after a meal, that food starts to feel more like fuel. Then it feels like you need that energy to digest the food, and your body kind of takes those cues, right? So I was feeling tired, then we got back to it, and I felt more active again, and the tiredness went away, right? And now I'm on my way home, and we ended the day early. So late lunch, ended the day early, and now I'm ready to like do work in the yard and all this work that I haven't really been feeling like doing around the house because I've been tired after work. But I think it has more to do with the pattern in which I'm eating, and like also the actions. And like a long day of work is tiring for sure, but it's not like today was a particularly untiring day. But we just finished a little early. That also contributes to it. But I think the fact that I'm not hungry yet, I'm not going to eat, and I'm not going to crash from like all the carbs from the food or whatever it is, I think that might be the key. So over the next couple of days, I'm going to try and eat later, and then maybe just avoid eating when I get home, and see if I work more or have more desire, I guess, to do things when I get home. So once again, stay tuned. It's a nice gloomy morning. Having my coffee. Always drink water before drinking coffee. That's something a friend taught me, is your body doesn't really take in water when you're asleep because obviously you're asleep, and so you don't want the first thing you put in your body to be something that dehydrates you, which is what coffee does. So drink plenty of water before you get into your cup of coffee. Maybe put it off for an hour if you can. This time I only did about 30 minutes, but yesterday went for a run. Did a little bit of digging in the yard for some projects we have, and then went for a run for the first time in probably 2 years. I did a mile and a half, probably took like 20 minutes. And more than anything, it felt good, but it hurt like shit afterwards. And it showed me just how much I was missing any kind of activity like that. My legs were shredded, but more exercise to come. So yeah, ran yesterday and kept that momentum up today by playing a little bit of pickleball. It was my first time playing in town, and we walked to the park, walked back home afterwards, played for a little bit, got some sun, overall good experience, not super intense, but got out there, kept that momentum going, which I think is kind of the biggest part. So one of the things that I really wanted to hone in on with all of this is what a diet is and how it fits into our lives. So I've tried quite a few diets before. I was a fat kid growing up, and then have always been like conscious about my weight since then. And the way that I gauge how healthy I am is by looking at myself in the mirror, basically. A scale will tell you whether you're up and down in pounds, but like we have this range of 5 or 10 pounds, whatever, that we can lose or gain, and it's all water weight. And then a scale doesn't tell you like your muscle density or anything like that. It doesn't tell you how you're feeling. I can't really afford to get blood tests done all the time, so what I end up doing is looking at myself and then seeing how I actually feel and using that as a gauge for whether or not something is healthy for me. So lately when I've been looking in the mirror, this past week it's only been a week. It hasn't even been a full week, so I'm not going to see any kind of huge differences at this point. But what I have been paying extra special attention to is my energy levels and the mental battle that I've been doing over sugar. So I'm not doing refined sugars, but there's a part of me that still feels like it's cheating to eat fruit or eat those date rolls that I mentioned, which are just dates and coconut. So, the fiber in the fruit, I think, is supposed to make it a little bit better. The fact that it's fructose and not sucrose is kind of a big difference in terms of what kind of sugar it is. But really, the point that I wanted to talk about was the fact that like it feels like I'm cheating because I'm still having something sweet. And there's that mindset that I have that like if I'm doing this, I need to feel punished. And that's how I'll know that like I succeeded in this. And so many diets out there are very extreme. Carnivore diet, literally just meat, animal fats, organs, and maybe electrolyte powder. I guess butter too. Some people do butter. Veganism, just plants and I guess oils and stuff, but I don't think people's bodies really thrive one way or the other. Those are like two ends of a spectrum, right? I think you do well for a certain amount of time, but in terms of lifestyle change, this is what I'm trying to get at. Diets are often so restrictive that keeping them up for a very long term takes someone who is highly disciplined or like is doing it because it's going to save their life, or you just don't. You do it for however many months you can stomach the pain of not enjoying your food as much as you did before, and then you fall off inevitably. You go to a birthday party or a wedding, and or somebody offers you free food. A lot of us, if you grew up kind of on the poorer side, saying no to free food is very hard, even if you don't want that food because it's not good for you. So what can you do if you know that like a lot of these diets may help, but they're not really something you could stick to for the rest of your life, or at least even a few years? Then you got to kind of work within your parameters and be honest with yourself, is what I imagine. If you're honest with yourself about me, for example, I love sweets, and it's probably a sugar addiction to a degree, but definitely love sweets, love salty, fatty foods. I like to cook, and I like to cook food that tastes as good or better than it does in a restaurant. And you know that restaurants use a shit ton of oil and butter and salt and sugar to make their food really good. So if I'm trying to outcompete them, imagine. The difference is, at least how I justify it in my mind, is I'm using higher quality ingredients. I'm trying to get, whenever I can, avocado oil, and not like some fake olive oil that's cut with canola oil or whatever it might be. Grass-fed butter. Buying meat from the butcher shop in town because I know that they get their meat from local areas. So, like, making these concessions, because if I'm going to live a life where food is like an important part of my life and still enjoy my food, then how can I do that without killing myself? Avoiding certain candies, like shit that has food dye in it. Food dye that we know is like made of petroleum and is bad for you. Avoiding that kind of stuff is really important. So if I'm going to avoid that, then maybe I do need to have fruit. Maybe I do need to have date rolls because I have a sweet tooth that's insatiable. And just level setting with yourself, level setting with myself about what is my lifestyle actually going to be. And on the point of alcohol, it's not like I have a fiending for alcohol where I come home and I want to drink, but the big thing for me, and I think most of us, is when friends want to go out and have drinks, I don't know if I really want to be sitting around watching a bunch of people drink. It's hard. My I hate using the word partner, but I don't really want to describe her. She's a female partner. She doesn't drink, and oftentimes she hangs out with us when we're all drinking, and I kind of become desensitized to it at a point, but I understand it's not the most fun to see something that you want to drink, but you also don't want to drink, but you don't want to stare at it over and over and like continually have to look at it and be like, well, I can't have that, or I can't have that. And maybe that's something that gets easier over time, but right now it's the middle of the summer. I've got buddies that want to hang out and just have beers on the porch and shoot the shit, and it just doesn't feel the same if I am sitting there and not having a beer. Maybe that's a mental thing I need to get over, but for the most part, I think a lot of these things are like psychological, and understanding that your diet is so much more than just the food that you eat. It's how much you eat, it's the way that you eat it, it's the quality of the foods you eat, and it's also how it makes you feel. Like, if you're suffering to stick to a diet because you feel like, well, this is what I have to do to get my shit on track, maybe that's the case, maybe it's not, but like the mental toll that it takes on you may not necessarily be worth the diet that you're doing. And so definitely not telling anybody what to do other than figure out what works for you. Take the time to experiment, cut things out, add things in, see how you react to it, and I guess write it down, take notes, and see how you might actually change your life to serve you better.